This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Welcome back to another episode of Hit the Road, Jack, Finding the Zodiac. Nanette Bartow here. We're going to invite to the show Harriette Suchet.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Okay.
I can't wait to do this show. So you start.
I am going to be excited to do it and make it through it without having any issues in the reading department. I did do a breakdown of the original letter, which Terry B had sent over, and a comparison of that to what was supposed to have been a typed verbatim message. I do find that there are several missing pieces, even some things that were not spelled precisely the way they were in the original letter. What did you work your solve off of?
It's the one that you sent me that has your markings, the red line.
Okay. So I'm like
it perfectly matches up.
It what?
Keep going. The correct.
I am not able to hear. I am not able to hear you right now. Something is going on.
Oh my goodness.
Now I can hear that. I can hear, oh my goodness.
Okay. This is really weird. The version that you have that has your markings on it, it matches up with that bell letter thing. So whoever is telling you that this is not correct, I'm in my view that's the correct version.
Well, no. I literally, okay, so on the screen right now, and I know you can't see this, but I have the original version.
Yes, I can. I can see the screen. I can see it.
Oh, beautiful. Okay.
Yes.
So that is the one Terry sent. This here is the one I'm reading off of.
Yeah, that's the one I used.
Okay. So what I'm saying is this one has more content than this one does. There are actually missing lines. I'm missing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different lines. And some of the items were not spelled verbatim as they were in this original typed letter. So I'm just wondering if it shouldn't be reworked from the actual original versus the retyped version I was given. And I believe I received this from Cathy Broad. I wanted to see what the contents of this letter was, and this is what she sent me. But it doesn't appear as though it's typed identically in the way that this other one is. But I think that I can probably maneuver doing that for you so that you could work off of a clean copy of the way that this whole thing is typed out.
Sorry for the laugh, but I know things now. But anyways,
right.
So you could please send me that other copy and I could work with that. But how this version is typed up, it is flawlessly matching with something else.
Gotcha.
Because there's a code in there.
Is that the other letter that you were saying was the Zodiac Camp, but not Jack's writing?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to be finished with that in a few days, but it says something about this Dr. Danto letter.
Well, let's talk about some of these things, because I did
Yes.
put up here the fact that the Dear Draft Board letters were the best comparative value for a communication from what I believe to be the Zodiac, along with this particular typewritten message. And the reason why I found that they were a good match is because of the use of the number 8 instead of the apostrophe in the words like don't care. So over here to the left, I have items that came off of the Dear Draft Board letter. And everybody needs to remember that the Dear Draft Board letter is also discussing Vietnam. So, or the individual is pretending that Vietnam was the military he was in. And we see that he wrote signed at the bottom before his name. And we see that in the Dr. Danto letter, I signed Alan. So we see signed actually typewritten and in handwriting, but then we see the don't with the number 8 and the shouldn't with the number 8. This is the same as didn't with the number 8 and shouldn't with the number 8 from the Dr. Danto letter. Now, I know that reading it is a very tough read because the individual is attempting to dumb down their writing or make it look like, at a minimum, that English is not their first language. I find linguistically there's far too many correct use of the English language that I do not believe somebody who had English as a second language would have been able to pick up on and use. Tenses are one of them. I see in here when he says it would screw up your mind too, he is properly using TOO. He uses, I would say, more of an English ebonics, if you will, where he uses the word gotta, GOTTA, and fucking FUCKIN. So I feel that this person has a very good grasp of the English language, and they've just attempted to dumb themselves down with this particular letter. Some of the lines that we were missing in here, which I thought were interesting, was Doc, it gotta be fucking nom. I did not read this off last week because it's not in that verbatim typed version. It says, you ever be over there? It would screw up your mind too. And that's where we find the TOO that is being used correctly. I also found lines that had hyphens. So this particular typed message, and we know that hyphens and the breaking of words are something that we quote for the Zodiac. And this one, after trees bloom in 3 weeks, we've got 6 hyphens. I don't know if that played into your particular solve or not, because it wasn't included in this verbatimly typed version. It says, also, you understand, and what I say to you, it be code. So here we are discussing newspapers, codes, speaking in codes. You make it to say trees bloom in 3 weeks. I know you get my letter and he wrote stand with STDNA. So these lines were actually missing. And then I find that there are words and letters that are missing throughout this particular verbatimly typed version. So it is not verbatim, basically, is the bottom line. Either way, I still think the contents of what it has, we're going to cover quite well today. So I'm not going to try and go back through and read this until I retype it properly so that it is completely typed in the manner in which the letter was initially executed. So one of the things that we go back and do, which is what I was trying to do after last week, once I read the letter, I want to go back and then discuss the different linguistics and use of words and the spelling errors and the other things that we're going to see that are consistent with what the Zodiac did. So this had an unknown date on it. It was a letter to a psychiatrist, Dr. Danto. We have to remember that in the Dear Draft Board letters that the author was talking about having seen a psychiatrist, and he had been torn apart and put back together again. I think that would adequately explain what, like MK Ultra? Are you there, Harriette? Okay.
Yeah, MK Ultra. Yes.
Right.
No, they didn't lose me.
No, I didn't. So I had put on here that I needed to compare the Dear Draft Board, Jack's Japan letter, and Patricia Houts and the Sherry Jo Bates matter, because these are all typewritten communications. And as I was staring at this particular communication today, the original version, it does appear that the typewriter is similar in the makeup of its letters and the punctuation and everything else. So I'm kind of interested in seeing if it is identical to what we're seeing, even though they're approximately 9 years apart. So basically, greetings on the envelope was most very important, most urgent. This is Zodiac or the Los Angeles murders, the Tom Voight letters, Tim Miller. It's a very most very important or just urgent and please. These are all words that were used during all of these other communications that we've talked about. He said he's desperate and he wants help, and that is Zodiac in these Dear Draft Board letters. He's acting as though he is sick and created to be sick by the government and is looking to be healed, I guess, if you will. He says nearly gone crazy, which is the Dear Draft Board letter bureaucrazy. The psychiatric or psychiatry mentioned in the Dear Draft Board letter, he's actually mailing this to a psychiatrist. Can't help me and wants help is Belli letter, Zodiac, lipstick killer, stop me. All of this can't help me. If I can't help, you can't help, then you can't stop me. But that pleading for it. He also mentions his slaves. So Zodiac, big persona, was to take slaves for the afterlife. He picked up the ones he killed, supports a second suspect's involvement. So we've been talking a lot about the possibility of more than one person being involved in these cases. He says that they were stuffed, right? He says they were stuffed in clothes hampers. Jack is still fighting for disability from Lake Tahoe City Linen and Cameron Park Shell. The laundry murders in San Francisco were committed by the Zodiac, as you believe, right, Harriette? Where there was neatly folded clothing that was found along or leaving the crime scene.
Yes, this pertains to in this particular Dr. Danto letter. It's called the Holiest Code. That's in our Liberty Bell from 1751 in Washington. So much. I read a little more. So all this links together. It's amazing. There's, everything being laid out.
Yes. We're going to get you. We're going to get you your solve once I'm done with this. So cleaning of the body and clothing has been a normality in these murder sprees, along with the waterway dump sites. We saw that the gremlin was spelled correctly in one line and misspelled in another. This is exactly Zodiac 101. The Ohio claim for one of the early Michigan murders where he left the body floating in the Miami River is a cross connection to his Florida activity, Miamisburg, Ohio. He's talking about killing people in Vietnam. It's real beautiful there, Doc. That's something that Denny Terrence actually wrote on a picture he sent to Jack. So a very strange statement for somebody to say that it is beautiful in Vietnam when they're killing people with napalm and they're just decimating all kinds of women, children. Sometimes, I mean, that stuff was hitting our own people. So let's see that he called home or wrote home and indicated that Jack was missing out because it was hunting season there all year round. After returning home, Denny became a long haul truck driver. So he's, I'm going to guess, all over the place. Not to mention that Jack has relatives or friends in nearly every central location of all these crimes. Get nothing back for what we did for our country. So he hates everybody and wants to get back at them. That kind of reminds me of your solves where Jack is upset with the MK Ultra program and now the work comp system is screwing with him. But in all fairness, Jack isn't really disabled as far as I'm concerned. It does not appear that he is. He says he's going to kill
a cover. I think it's just, I mean, he's got problems, but I think it's being used as a cover for what he's doing.
Right? So screwing with him, but on fairness, okay, he says he's going to kill some more. So even though he doesn't, and it's the same taunt as all the other communications in these crimes, that there will be more. And that started as early on as the lipstick killings. I'm going to commit suicide. We've seen this in the Riverside Phantom letters and the Zodiac letters. We'll turn him in. This has been a theme that's been going on since Georgette Bauerdorf, Black Dahlia, the other Los Angeles Riverside activity, and turning themselves in at a bar or tavern or other such place is all consistent. And the please, please, please not print this in the paper is a contradiction to the most of the other serial killers' requests to print. And it sounds like he really wants this to be talked about. He says that we never be caught, reoccurring statement from all these cases. Get back to him with code and papers. That's Zodiac, Scorpion, Albany, New York, Sacramento received codes that the killer requested to print or else. I believe even in the Tom Voight letters, he was instructing him on how to make contact without mailing his P.O. box because, and that was, I believe, through his show or through some other method or means rather than a direct contact. The request to print in free press was the DC Freeway Phantom. Another case, the letter was sent with free written in the postage area. And also, when he wrote freeway, I believe that free was a standout portion of that letter. Author attempts to make himself sound as though he's a foreigner or that he is English or English is a second language, but there are several instances where he speaks and articulates with perfect understanding of the English language, which contradicts the attempt to declare that he's foreign. But we also saw that in the anthrax letters, that he was attempting, or the perpetrator was attempting to appear as though English was not their first language or that they were not of American descent. This is the same in the John Benet Ramsey ransom note in 1996. And like I said, the anthrax. So find the reference to the gravel pit that one of the kids were found in. I must not have seen that. Either way, that actually brings us to your solve. So do you want to read your emails here before we go into the solve? Are you able to see that, Harriette? Oof. What's that? You're cutting out again. You're cutting.
It's very much hitting home for me.
Okay, I'm having a hard time understanding you. What's that?
Okay, it's saying the mic is muted. Okay, now, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you read the email. It's very tiny. So,
okay. Says, hi, Nanette. This is it. I'll send a nice and neat full decoded version later. NSH is Naperville State Hospital, where Dr. Danto and Dr. Tanay, both are Jewish, were connected to. Dr. Tanay is in a 1970 news article for deprogramming a girl who's hypnotized like MK Ultra. So did do deprogramming. Dr. Tanay knew Melvin Belli and was on Jack Ruby Belli's defense side. Hits home for me as my family attorney, Jewish, William Bernstein, worked in the Belli group and on the Ruby case, and mother's dear family friend, Jewish as well, nurse who delivered me and siblings at Mount Zion in San Francisco, knew Bernstein. Wow. Another Terrence surprise is Mihalik is Nazi. Fort Collins, Colorado area, and Hitler Third Reich landowner in Colorado. And then Jack says they're in Cotton, Minnesota, and working as vendor, services, food, janitors, and more for Utica Community Schools right next to Oakland County. And so who are you saying that is working there?
He's saying, Jack is saying himself, but I remember hearing that Nora often worked like at schools and stuff, different jobs. So,
well, the secret witness letter alluded to somebody being a custodian at a school. So that's kind of wow. Oh, I just got goosebumps. I like it when it happens. All right. So I'm going to finish your second one, which is hi both. What's that?
Keep going.
Okay. It says, hi, both of you. There is so much to cover in this letter. Dr. Tanay did do programming, knew Mel Belli, and worked with Jack Ruby Defense. My family. Oh, I think this is almost verbatim. This is almost exactly. Let's see.
Yeah, it's almost the same.
Who knew my mom's dear friend who was a GBYN nurse, delivered me and other siblings in San Francisco. Jack brings up about Dennis's dad, Dennis Lee Kaufman Sr., that his beautiful wife is now with him at the moment in Cotton, Minnesota. He says atomic energy guy J.W. Mihalik is a Nazi Third Reich man who had the Hitler Colorado property. Brings up about Vietnam, 1954 passage to freedom, brought French and Vietnam events, speaking Catholics to South V, safety away from communists, I think that was supposed to say, in North V. Another hit home for me, my USMM hazard duty Navy Reserve dad took part, was Catholic and spoke French. Jack is pleading for help to get that red stamp MK Ultra cure. All right. So we see what you've done here. And obviously these are not all the letters that are in this particular letter. So what portion of it did you use?
I can read it as best as I can. It's at the top. It's Dr. Danto, most very important, urgent, please, and then the misspelled desperate, misspelled haven't, misspelled commit,
Okay.
can't with and don't. Yeah, just everything that's at the top there is what I
It's
use.
misspelled. Okay. So you went
And,
with everything that was misspelled,
yeah.
basically.
And then
Okay.
the very weird not graphology, the weird please. I mean, so it just really stood out because I've done so many of the zodiac ones, the scorpion cipher stuff, the letters. So there's a lot of stenographic code in there. And apparently
Gotcha.
that's a part of a code from 1751.
Really?
Yeah. So shall I read it to you as best as I
Yes,
got? Because it
absolutely.
flawlessly, yeah. Oh, okay. I'm so thrilled with this. It's to Naperville State Hospital, Dr. Emmanuel Tanay. You deprogrammed every secret thing, Patty Hearst. To tell the truth, I confess I did kill Richard Nixon traitor Robert Stebbins' boy in Oakland County and Fort Collins, Third Reich 88, which is HH for Heil Hitler, German landowner, General Electric, Enrico Fermi, nuclear power plant guy, J.W. Mihalek, daughter, then 1954, Vice President Richard Nixon, UN-funded Vietnam Passage of Freedom, U.S. Navy Barry King boy, UIR, Ubi Use Remedium. That means where's the damn remedy? Dr. Tanay, please help me. I'm ill and I'm desperate. Please save me. I'm under shitty old deviant Sidney Gottlieb mind control program. Do you have the red stamp ad usum, which means for use, for the sun, day, LSD, after midnight remedy? If true, please send it in a letter to Nomen Nescio Dennis Kaufman Sr., beautiful wife, Nora, who's now with me in Cotton, Minnesota, and it's a Utica Community School vendor, Nomen Nescio J.W. Torrance. Blown away.
Yeah, that it's actually talking about. We know he's in Cotton, Minnesota at this point. That's for sure. It's running along the same lines as what we know about the MK Ultra program. And now it is naming Dr. Emmanuel Tanay, who you said works with Dr. Danto.
He's a very prominent and famous psychiatrist, medical professional, and how it just loops back to he knew William Bernstein, people connected to my family. He's very, very prominent. And if I remember correctly, being from San Francisco, the rumors were Patty Hearst was deprogrammed by this doctor.
Huh. Well, we know that they did claim that she had been brainwashed, and that's why she got pardoned, right?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, how long would it legitimately take somebody to be brainwashed by this program? I can't imagine it's something that's quick. It would take time, right?
Yes, I think it took months. The reason why I said that that's the rumor is because the police officer she later did marry during that time period was working in the Ingleside Police Department, which covered my neighborhood. So we met the police officer.
I wish Nolan was here. He would be able to answer how long she was captive for when she was supposedly brainwashed and
yes,
made to rob a bank. That just sounds, it just sounds too, oh gosh, sensational to not be something that Hearst would have monopolized on, obviously, for money-making reasons and selling newspapers.
I think he did. He just seized it as an opportunity. You know, it's just, they're in the business to sell papers. They're like, okay, kid, you've been brainwashed, but you're going to sell papers and don't tell her. So.
Yeah, all mixed up with the SLA. Well, I did actually get this article from
Mhm.
Tony once again. He had given this to me, and this is kind of an update on what they say they know. Everything we know about the Oakland County child killer case. 4 children murdered between February 1976 and March 1977. Um, this was, oh, stop already. Mute. So, Oakland County, Michigan. It has been 47 years since the first known victim of Oakland County child killer was abducted and murdered. Mark Stebbins, 12, vanished on February 15th, 1976. He was found dead 4 days later. Police believe a serial killer murdered Stebbins and 3 other children in Oakland County between 1976 and 1977. So, they're only attributing 4 murders altogether to this. The children were all last seen within a mile of Woodward Avenue. They had been fed and cared for until their murders. The killer or killers bathed them and made them bathe. The killer is known primarily as the Oakland County child killer, but they are also known as the babysitter or the babysitter killer. The investigation into the several serial killings was the largest of its kind in U.S. history at the time. Michigan State Police confirmed the investigation is still open and all new tips are investigated as they come in. Anyone with information should contact 1-855-MICH-TIP, which is Michigan, but just MICH, and TIP. TIP. So 855-642-4847. Some of the events described in this article are disturbing. So let's see. There are 4 children police considered confirmed victims in the Oakland County child killer case. Mark Stebbins, 12, Jill Robinson, 12, Christine Mihalik, 10, and Timothy King, 11. All 4 children were murdered between February 1976 and March 1977. So we literally have what appears to be a 13-month killing spree, which is about the amount of months that the Zodiac was in play before he ups and disappears, and we don't see any of these again. 2 of the victims were girls and 2 were boys. Police believe only the boys had been sexually assaulted. The cause of death in 3 of the cases is listed as suffocation, but Jill Robinson was murdered with a shotgun. So what I found interesting is we've already seen in some of these documents that Terry had put forth that there was no sperm located or found on some of these victims. So it would be interesting to note, and I have not seen their autopsy reports, whether or not there was anything that indicated or what type of sexual abuse that they suffered from. The murder of Mark Stebbins, he had been missing for 4 days before his body was found near an office complex in Southfield. The 12-year-old boy spoke to his mother on the phone at 1:30 p.m. on February 15th, 1976. He called her to let her know that he was leaving the American Legion Hall in Ferndale to head home. Now, we've seen some of these crimes that have been around the veterans hospitals, the American Legion halls, the veteran halls. We've seen more than once that the American Legion or just like the local convenience stores are places that these children are going missing. It says he never arrived home. His mother called Ferndale police at 11 p.m. that night to report him missing. His body was discovered on February 19th, 1976. A businessman named Mark, and I've tried this before, I'm not going to try and say his name, was walking toward a drugstore located inside the New Orleans Mall when he thought he saw a mannequin dressed in a blue jacket and jeans. As he approached the object, he realized he had discovered a child's body. That was around 11:45 a.m. Another person told police that they walked their dog around that parking lot at 9:30 a.m. The morning the body was found, the man said his dog was on a 20-foot leash and they walked around that part of the parking lot. He said that if the body had been there at that time, his dog would have found it. If the man is correct, that means Mark's body was not in the parking lot at 9:30 a.m., but it was at 11:45 a.m. And we talked about how ballsy that is, that somebody would be dropping him off in broad daylight next to a mall in a parking lot. We did see this picture. Mark was a 7th grade student at Lincoln Junior High School. He was 4 foot 8 inches tall and weighed approximately 100 pounds. The autopsy listed his cause of death as asphyxia by way of smothering and noted rope burns on his neck, wrists, and ankles. He had been sexually assaulted, it says. L. Brooks Patterson, who was the Oakland County prosecutor at the time, said Mark's body was washed by an autopsy team, washing away any fingerprints. Gosh, the forensics 101. I'm just hoping that maybe something can come out of all of these.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Can I say something really quick? This holiness code, which goes back centuries, It talks about cleaning the bodies after certain things happen. So they're blaming, in my view, they're blaming this, but this was already done. It's left as a message. It's disgusting, but
Wash them.
anyways, that's what to clean them, wash them, to clean their clothes, and iron them, really amazing. So and Jack is using this code.
Well, he says, I would hope that if anybody out there has information in this case, that they would please put it forward, because it has been a very long 45 years for me with no answers at all. And that's from Mark's brother, Michael Stebbins. Jill Robinson had been missing for 4 days before her body was found on the side of I-75. The 12-year-old girl left home on December 22nd, 1976, after an argument. Carol Robinson, Jill's mother, said they were arguing because Jill had been asked to make biscuits for dinner and she refused. Carol told Jill to leave until she became part of the family. Ooh, she literally kicked her out. Jill went to her room, got dressed, packed up clothes and a blanket into a denim bag, and left. She rode her bike away from her home. Jill was spotted by a family friend at a hobby shop on Woodward Avenue, just 4.5 blocks away from her home. Jill's father, Thomas Robinson, called the police at 11:30 p.m. the day she left to report her missing. Witnesses said they saw Jill in the donut depot on Maple Road between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. that morning. Her body was discovered on the side of I-75 north of Big Beaver Road on December 26, 1976. Her killer had transported her there and shot her at close range in the head with a shotgun. She was laying on her back and was fully clothed. Police said there were no signs of sexual abuse. This kind of just gives you just a map they are showing of where the dump sites. This map was made with Google. Create your own Oakland County child killer. I don't think they actually gave us a key to determine what they're meaning by it. Either these are sightings, vehicles, dump sites. Maybe the vehicle is where the pickup was and the X is where the bodies were found. And it kind of looks like it because we see one really close to Royal Oak there. The murder of Christine Mihalik had been missing for 19 days before her body was found in a snowbank in Franklin Village. The 10-year-old girl lived with her mother in Berkeley and was a 5th grade student at Pattongill Elementary School. She was last seen on January 2nd, 1977. She left the bowling alley where her mother worked to go to a 7-Eleven store. So now we have that convenience store, just like we're going to see with Timothy King. She left the bowling. Her body was discovered by a mail carrier in a snowbank at the end of a dead-end street in Franklin Village on January 21st, 1977. Her body was so frozen, officials had to wait until the next day to perform an autopsy. Now, what was interesting is that we talked about, or at least I had researched, that there were taillights left in the snow next to where her body was found, indicating that the driver of the vehicle had backed up into a snow bank and left the impression of a rear taillight, though I don't know if they identified what type of a vehicle that came from. Police said there were no signs of violence and she was in the same vehicle. What's that? You're cutting out again. I can't understand you.
Oh. I'm saying it's most likely a GM vehicle because GM is playing a role with the Nazis. So
I saw one of the things that were missing from this verbatim one that actually had just the GE off all by itself in here. Did not look like it added up to anything or any other place, but we know that Jack did work for GE when he was in San Jose. Police said there were no signs of violence and she was in the same clothes she was last seen in. Her body was on its back, knees drawn up. She had not been sexually assaulted. Her cause of death was listed as suffocation. What? Okay. Christine's mother filed a lawsuit in 2012 against prosecutors and investigators alleging the case had been mishandled. The family said that the case was handled so badly that they feel any hope of learning who their daughter's killer has been lost. Their case was dismissed in 2013. The murder of Timothy King. Timothy King had been missing for 7 days before his body was found in Livonia Ditch. The 11-year-old boy is the 4th victim to be connected to the Oakland County child murder killer. He was last seen on March 16th, 1977. He left his Birmingham home with 30 cents he borrowed from his older sister. He left for the Hunter Maple Pharmacy. The trip was about 3 blocks and he made it often. A clerk at the pharmacy said she sold Tim candy at 8:30 p.m. and he left through the back door into the dark parking lot. Before Tim left home, he asked his sister to leave the door ajar for him. His sister also left home that night. Their parents returned to the home at 9 p.m. to find the door ajar and no sign of Tim. The family searched everywhere for the boy. By 9:15 a.m. the next morning, police called on a task force to help investigate. Tim was the 7th child to go missing in that area, and tensions were at an all-time high. That morning, headquarters were established just a few blocks from his home. Police conducted door-to-door searches and interviewed his classmates. We love him very much. He had a basketball game Saturday and missed practice today, which was Thursday. He's active in a school play. He's an achiever and a participator. We just loved him and want him to come home, Tim's father, Barry King, said. That's extremely sad. But I was kind of wondering what a little boy is doing out at 8:30 at night, 3 blocks or not, walking at nighttime, knowing that there are these children that are going missing. It just blows my mind.
Yeah, there's something about these events are not exactly matching up, but we'll find out later as we decode.
Says the boy's body was found on March 23rd, 1977 in a ditch along Gill Road, about 300 feet south of 8 Mile Road in Livonia. He was found by a motorist just a short distance away from a very busy intersection. He was wearing the same clothes he had on when he left for the pharmacy. His skateboard was found about 15 feet away from his body. So somebody's keeping their collective items with them. The autopsy revealed Tim had been fed his favorite meal, Kentucky Fried Chicken, cleaned and groomed thoroughly before he was suffocated. There was evidence Tim had been sexually assaulted. It was after Tim's murder that the police knew they were investigating a serial child killer. They organized the largest manhunt in U.S. history at the time, and a task force was established. Barry King and his wife established the Tim King Fund in 1977 to provide assistance to abused children and promote youth activities in Birmingham. Barry King died in 2020 without answers. He had spent decades pursuing the case on his own. And I believe Cathy Broad and her father also took a suit against Michigan in order to obtain the FOIA files because they weren't wanting to release any of that information. The investigation. The murder investigation was the largest of its kind in U.S. history at the time, and a special... why do they have to repeat themselves? The task force first became a concept at a meeting regarding the disappearing of Christine Mihelich. Southfield Police Department Lieutenant Jerry Simmons set up a meeting with all police departments involved in the Robinson murder and Mihelich's disappearance. The task force was officially formed and funded after Tim vanished. The task force received more than 11,000 tips, including one from a woman who told police she saw Tim King speaking with a man near a blue AMC Gremlin with a white stripe on its side. But we have to remember that car was still there in the parking lot when the family returned to search for him there. That tip sparked a massive search, and police stopped anyone who drove a blue Gremlin. And now there is a doubt that a Gremlin was even involved at all. Special Task Force has since been disbanded. Now, this is where it gets interesting, and we get into this pedophilia idea. So is not North Fox Island connected to the Oakland County child murders? And we can see where this plays out. They have obviously the I-75 mapped here, and we can see that the North Fox Island is right here to the left of Michigan in the Bay. Let's see. In 1977, police investigated a child pornography ring on North Fox Island. The massive investigation led police to 2 people, Frank Sheldon of Grosse Pointe and Jerry Richards, a teacher in Port Huron. Sheldon owned much of North Fox Island, and Richards recruited young boys to fly to the island, according to the investigators. Sheldon built an airfield with a landing strip, added a docking area, and constructed cabins on the island. He had a private jet and flew children from Charlevoix. Now we have that picture of Jack noting the nuclear power plant in Charlevoix, Michigan. I thought that was more of a connection to the John Benet Ramsey case and the fact that John Ramsey owned a home in Charlevoix, Michigan, but it was definitely during inclement weather, which was snow. And we know that Jack is in Cotton, Minnesota during the time that it is snowing. It says from Charlevoix to the island where he had a filming operation for a child pornography ring. Sheldon fled the country in 1976 and was never prosecuted. He died in 1996. Richards Richards was prosecuted for child pornography and has since died. Investigators do not believe either man is the Oakland County child killer, but one theory suggests the killer could be someone they victimized on the island. That's a far stretch, don't you think?
Yeah.
I mean, if you were a child victimized on the island,
I just think it's deeper than that. I'm just wondering if these people have any of the then neo-Nazi connections. Because then that ties in with programming little boys, girls as young as 10 and all the way up until they're 21. Yeah, so
well,
I've been doing extensive reading lately, retouching on stuff I already knew.
It says we were the well, this touches back on the human trafficking aspect that you've been talking about finding in some of these solves. It says we were the first to look at pornography and pornography rings and pedophilia as being a motive in this Oakland County child killer case. Former Wayne County Detective Corey Williams told Shattered, "We put quite a bit of time and effort into that. Were these kids filmed? Pictures taken? Were they passed around? We don't know at this point, but we did put a lot of time and effort into that." So the police interview a man convicted on the porn charges. On March 29th of 1977, 3 Michigan State Police detectives flew to Joliet, Illinois to speak with an unnamed man in the Stateville Correctional Center who had been convicted of distributing child pornography. Police wanted to find out if the Oakland County child killer victims had been used to create pornographic films or still photos and where that material would be marketed if that was the case. And the man provided detectives with information on where the material would be marketed and who might have knowledge of it. He said he doubted the murderer, who he described as psychotic, would be interested in that. He felt that there was too much police attention on child pornography to find any market at that time, especially if these children were involved with those films. He is quoted as telling detectives he's going to keep it up. Just why in the hell does he do it all in one locality, except he is screaming for you to catch him? Then we had the letter sent to a Detroit psychiatrist. I know who the killer is. And I'm not even sure how I passed over the top of that when we talked about it before, because it seems like I must have accidentally skipped right past it when I went into the letter. But what I wanted to say is that Dr. Danto from page 3, there was these messages that were going back and forth, pray it doesn't snow. And we didn't talk about this, but the snow is one of the reasons why Jack ended up leaving that area, because he said it was too cold. And we know that the Zodiac wrote in regards to the 12th victim upside down and around in the snow. So we've got this same snow theme that's going on. And then the trees to bloom in 3 weeks is kind of like Groundhog Day, right? The groundhog is going to come out in 3 weeks, but the trees are to bloom in 3 weeks, which means the snow is left. Zodiac proclaimed, along with several other Zodiac-style letters in this serial killer's life, to prove that someone has it wrong. And that's what he's doing. In this, he says, a certain note of menace and determination. Dr. Danto said, the individual who called, all right, let me start back. Until 2:18 p.m. Sunday, he had handled more than 50 calls in a coolly professional manner. This one was different. It was a voice filled with a certain note of menace and determination. Dr. Danto said, like a top sergeant giving an order. According to Dr. Danner, the caller said, the article was wrong. You better hope and pray it doesn't snow anymore. Dr. Danto said he retorted with, I don't think I understand what you're saying, and the caller hung up. So now we've got calls that are being made to him. Belli, supposedly, right, was reached out to by the Zodiac. He had a letter from the Zodiac. So all of this is, and you're saying that Danto is working with Tanae, and Tanae has worked with Ruby and Melvin Belli. Like there's this nifty little circle that's going on.
Yes, prominent Jewish people. Dr. Danto is very prominent and very wonderful from what I read. I mean, these were things we weren't allowed to discuss when we were growing up, but, you know, I learned now. So all these prominent Jewish loving people, amazing.
Right here, screaming it. Free press photo by Ira Rosenberg. All right. So a person claiming to be the roommate of the Oakland County child killer wrote a long letter to a Detroit psychiatrist in 1977. Dr. Bruce Danto shared the letter with investigators. The author of the letter only identified himself as Alan, and he referred to the killer as Frank. Alan said he went with the killer when he looked for the boys. He said he was not with Frank when he kidnapped the 4 murder victims. So is this initially saying when he looked for boys for the island, maybe, but he wasn't with them when he kidnapped and killed these 4 murder victims? Something's not adding up. And if they were looking for boys, then why would girls have been abducted?
Well, if I remember right, the previous show that we did about the secret witness letter, Jack is clarifying that Ed Bell is the one who killed Jill Robinson. It looks like they left her in this mix to help create this this image of some serial child rapist killer, but it's turning out to be something else. I mean, it's it is what it is.
So kind of more like what we were thinking along with the Zodiac stuff. There was always a particular target, but everybody else was just kind of to make it look as though it was just random serial killer.
And it also sold a lot of papers, the Detroit Free Press and the Detroit News. So, but it did its work. It did its job. So
right. It says the letter had many spelling and punctuation errors. I'm desperate and nearly gone crazy and haven't got no place left to turn. And I want everybody to realize that both in the Dear Draft Board letters and in the Dr. Danto letter, while they use the number 8 incorrectly as what should have been an apostrophe, they showed the aptitude to use the apostrophes correctly in all other instances. Sometimes they didn't use one, but they definitely showed the use of it in words like didn't and don't and can't. So that number 8 thing just kind of screams at me because it's nowhere near any of the other letters for it to be an accidental, where they reached out and just hit the wrong key, because the numbers on a typewriter are well above the keys. Let's see. What you must help me is that.
Well, I just wanted to say real quick, when I was looking up and I remembered something about 88, it was very quick. 88 stands for HH. It's Nazi Germany. It's Heil Hitler. So he's probably looking for that stamp in the 1960s. He wants to get the cure. I mean, we can go on and on, but wow.
Yeah, that was 1968. And he was saying that he was messed up. He was torn apart, put back together again. The doctors can't help him. And he's basically blaming the government for it. It says, this is for real. I know who the killer is. I live with him. I am his slave. Alan said he stayed with the children in an apartment in Detroit while Frank went to work. He said the children were gagged so nobody else in the apartment complex could hear them. Alan said he met Frank in Vietnam and that the war had twisted Frank's mind. He killed a lot of little kids with medals for it, burned them to death, bombed them with napalm. He wants the rich people, like people in Birmingham, to suffer like all of us suffered to get nothing back for what we did for our country. Alan wrote, he's not a monster like you think. He really loves children, especially that little girl for 3 weeks, not doing it because he hates children, but doing it because he hates everybody else out there. And what is the purpose of just the rich people in Birmingham? I mean, there's plenty of rich people out there. And are the people of Birmingham the ones responsible for sending anyone to Vietnam? I wouldn't think so.
No, they have a huge connection to Nazi Germany, the BUSCH family. So, wow. Yeah, GM was making auto parts and all kinds of things for our side of that war, mainly World War II, but was also making the vehicles and the other things over in Germany, which were taking part in gassing the Jews from the carbon monoxide. And this is BUSCH.
Right, but we had our own concentration camps over there. And it is a fact that we were over there supplying them with the things they needed to build their tanks, the coal, the steel, the wood. We were monopolizing, U.S. was monopolizing on this money-making scheme of war while we knew what they were doing to other people.
Yeah, it's very amazing and eye-opening.
That's just crazy. So Alan asked Danto to contact him through the newspapers using the code words trees to bloom in 3 weeks. According to Ludington Daily News report, Danto received a call from Alan on April 10th, 1977, and the two agreed to meet the next night at a bar. So there's that bar reference. Alan said he would bring Polaroid pictures that would prove Frank killed the 4 children if Danto brought a letter of immunity from then Governor William Milliken. Alan never showed up at the bar because he had never any intentions of doing so. But I do know that Jack definitely had a Polaroid. Man sounded very frightened, not cool, and composed. Danto told the newspaper, "I don't think it was a hoax call," he says. And that brings us into named persons of interest. We have some varying degrees of composites, and it seems to me that none of these individuals truthfully match the people that they've actually listed as suspects. At least this one particular composite that I'm showing does not seem to match anybody else, let alone Chris Bush. A suspect is not currently named in the Oakland County child killer case. Oh, we just ran over. I'm so sorry, you guys. All right. Well, we're going to have to call it here at the named persons of interest. We will come back with the suspects and why they were ruled out next week. Everybody have a great weekend. I will be coming to you not live this Friday because I will be enjoying the Aftershock heavy metal show. Thank you so much, Harriette, for your time and for being here. Everybody have a great day.
Great show. Thank you.
Thank you.